You got a bunch of people in the background?
Say again?
You got a bunch of people in the background? TV playing or something?
Yeah, let me move.
Hi, Mom.
Your mom on here?
She was a second ago. Yeah, she is.
Hi, Jan.
You got it.
Good morning, David.
Morning. So there is a lot to cover with Moses. So David said that we should just kind of go over some of the topics and do some further research and talk about what we find next week. So we're going to make this one kind of short and sweet.
Okay.
Yeah. Robert can't be here today. Robert and Tiffany. And my brother's in town. So
I feel like I don't know where I landed on this research because I feel like the more I look into it, the more questions I have. And so that is fine with me. I feel like I need another week to read what I've collected here. Mostly because there's a lot of contradicting views. If I go all the way down to the bottom here, I wanted to show you two articles that are exactly the opposite of each other, in my opinion. This is a magazine called Haaretz, and it's something to do with, it's a Jewish publication. And there's an article here about Ben Carson, and Ben Carson believed that Imhotep was Joseph. And in this article, they're saying why that's not true. But then the same publication does another article where they say that Akhenaten was Moses. Or it says Imhotep was not Joseph, and then they say Imhotep or Akhenaten was Moses. I just thought it was kind of weird. It seems to me like if you believe in one, you should probably believe in both of them. I guess that's not a very scientific way of looking at it, but I feel like if you believe the Jews were in Egypt and there's a line of them, then there's no reason why Akhenaten could not be a descendant of Imhotep. I was trying to do the research on that, and I've collected a lot of information, but I haven't really come to any conclusions about it yet. But I'm trying to trace within the lineage of pharaohs. I'm trying to.
My brother's in there. Harvey's in there. My brother. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
So Tutmos. It's Tutmos. Possibly is Thoth. And if you know anything about Thoth, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth Thoth was believed to be an Atlantean, and he talked to a Greek, and the Greeks wrote about a guy who came from Atlantis, lived in Egypt, and he has what's called the Song of Thoth, and it's extremely similar to the Lord's Prayer, and it came thousands of years prior. And so there's the more research you do on Hermes of the Greeks and Mercury, the god Mercury, a lot of them seem like they could be Joseph. And so I am trying to do, obviously no one has come up with an answer because, I mean, if somebody come up with an answer, it would be easy to find answers. But you find a lot of evidence, but no definitive decisions. Here's one thing I found about Joseph being Imhotep. Here's a lot of similarities. They were both second in command underneath the Pharaoh. They both lived 110 years. They were both architects and builders. They both stored corn for 7 years of plenty, saw 7 years of famine. They were both interpreters of dreams. They both built the step pyramid. They were physicians, instituted a 1/5 tax, married into the priesthood of On. They were both astrologers, both had 12 siblings, Both became educated men and writers, overseer of public works, legendary historians, and their names mean increase or join or gather together. Imhotep's name means one who comes in peace. And so I feel like it's connected. I'm looking here at the tribes, the descendants of Jacob, and how that fits into Levi. Right here would be Moses. He was a Levite. And you were talking about that, David, that right around the beginning, first and second chapters of Exodus. Moses was born into a Levite family. It says a member of the Levite family married a Levite girl, which that tells me that they're related. And then if you go all the way up here to the top, I have a place where I've been researching Moses in the Quran, and there's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of things that are different as well. This was an interesting video of 10 facts about Moses. One thing I read, which I'm not sure if I got it from this or if I got it from down here where I talk about Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud believed that Akhenaten was Moses. Right here, he had a book called The Akhenaten and Monotheism. And I came onto all of this stuff because whenever I was in art school, I was studying Egyptian art. And we came across this guy named Akhenaten, and he was so similar to Moses. I asked my professor, is it possible that Akhenaten was Moses? And he didn't really give me an answer, but I've been researching about it ever since. Turns out that Sigmund Freud believed me or agreed with me, and so does Ben Carson. And so I think it's worth looking into. And the main reason why I want to know all this is I just feel like there has to be, if any of this should be believed, then there's got to be some basis in reality, archaeology. What makes it a little more complicated is that both the history of Akhenaten and the history of Moses were stricken from the records, as we saw in the movie about the Ten Commandments. So that's what I have been looking into. One thing that I ran across that I felt like was of some help was I was reading a story about him being a Midianite, and it says God's plan was to use all that Moses had become to accomplish his deliverance of Israel from the Egypt's slaves. God never wastes any part of our life experiences. God needed the whole Moses. The Egyptian Moses was not enough. The Hebrew Moses was not enough. The Midianite Moses was not enough. None of these parts of Moses was enough to accomplish the task God planned to do. God needs all of Moses, not just part of him. Moses, like us, did not understand what God had been doing in him and what God was now doing in him. But God patiently worked with Moses to accomplish his goals. All Moses had to do was obey. But obedience is very hard for Moses and each of us. It says, take a look at yourself and your family and the people in the workplace or who live in your neighborhood. Do you see people rejecting part of who they are to embrace another part of their culture? Hey, let me skip down past it. What does it mean to be an Italian American, an African American, a Japanese American, or a Latino American? To be an American, do you have to reject your ethnic heritage to be accepted in the United States? The pressure seems to say yes to this question, but should it be like this? What tensions do you see in the wide range of cultures surrounding us? How can God help us to be whole people instead of split personalities? I thought that was kind of interesting to think about. In whenever we are called by God, we have to drop all of our other labels. Otherwise, we're politically holden to those entities, and we can't truly represent what God wants for us. As long as we are politically tied to the people of there's already established on earth. To be truly listen to God, I think that we kind of have to stop being who we used to be.
We have to stop being who we used to be.
We have to reject our earthly flesh.
Right. Yeah, that goes to the crux of what we're trying to get at here for sure. And the reason I agree with that is because we see that it happening repetitively throughout the Bible. As people are anointed, and as we see the Holy Ghost coming upon certain characters.
And I think for today, that really can be relevant to us as we go into another election and we're running into so much political strife. I think it's important for us not to try to cling too hard to one side or the other, but to always see God's intent for us in the middle, not necessarily in the middle, but maybe above all of it.
Right.
That's true.
Let me go to my slide real quick, and I'm going to go back in and hang out with Harvey and Mackenzie, my dad. Do you have? Can you go to my slide? Okay, so here's I wanted to dig into this feminine entity. So I'm still on this feminine side thing. So we see in Exodus chapter 2, when Moses comes into the picture, okay, there's someone that is being described as his sister. She's standing afar when Moses' mother puts him in the ark and in the bulrushes near the flags. His sister is standing afar off, watching to see what's going to happen. And then later, when the Pharaoh's daughter finds him, she says to the Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I find a nurse of the Hebrews to take care of him?" And then it turns around to where she goes and gets his own mother, who then the Pharaoh's daughter pays her wages to be the nurse of Moses. And then we have to also think about the fact that this was a time when, so the Pharaoh had given orders to the midwives that whenever they were being a midwife to the pregnant Hebrew women, that if a boy came out at the stool during delivery, they were supposed to kill the boys, but they could leave the daughters to live. The midwives feared God, and they didn't do it. And they even told the Pharaoh why. So then the Pharaoh basically said to the people, the Hebrew people, he gave the order to them that if they had a son, that their sons were to be cast into the river. So that the Hebrew people were actually just killing their own children, throwing them into the river. Moses' mother was the one who, I don't know if she orchestrated with Moses' sister to save him by hiding him where the Pharaoh's daughter would find him and have compassion on him. But the sister is a significant person, because, and what I don't know is if she was a maid of the Pharaoh's daughter, or if she was just like, if they all kind of went down to the river in the same place, intermingled, the Hebrews and the Pharaoh's, nobility. So that was a big question. And then also there's some notes there about just the family members of Moses and Aaron, because Aaron was Moses' brother. And those people become important later whenever you start reading different stories. Then you can make a connection of what's happening here. And then, so I've been focused on the word anoint recently and did a word search on that today with my daughter Lydia. And she helped me try to understand some things that I've been reading as well. But that's where I've kind of left off, and I'm going to try to see if I can put it together in a way that is or understandable as far as these women that are also present based on Mark 14 and the other gospel stories where Jesus says that Mary Magdalene is also supposed to be included in the gospel as a memorial to her when she anoints, because he says she came aforehand to anoint me to my burial, which happens right before he's betrayed.
Okay.
Right.
And that all relates back, I'm saying, to Proverbs chapters 1 and 8, where wisdom is speaking in the feminine voice.
One more thing I'll bring up before you go, David. Mom was asking about were the Hebrews slaves, or I was asking were they slaves, and she was saying yes, they were. I found a passage that explains this. Exodus 1:8-14 says, "And a new king arose over Egypt that had not known Joseph. And he said to his people, Behold, the people of the sons of Israel are many and are mightier than we. Grant that we will be wise concerning them before they are multiplied, lest we come to war and they are added also unto our haters. And they will fight with us, and they will drive us out from the land. And they placed evil rulers over them that would oppress them in their oppression. And they were building cities, places of storage for Pharaoh, Pithom, and Ramesses. And as much as those oppressed them, so they were multiplying, and thus they were growing strong, and it was distressing them before the children of Israel. And the Egyptians were oppressing the children of Israel with hardship, and they were making their lives bitter, and with hard labor in clay and in bricks, and in every work of the field, all the servitude that they were serving for them with hardship." So basically, during the time of Joseph, they were not slaves. And between Joseph and Moses, they became mistreated and were treated as slaves.
Because the Pharaoh, because they were multiplying, they were gaining more wealth, and they were living good lives. And the Pharaoh was afraid that if they came into war, that the Israelites would join an alliance with their enemies.
One more thing I want to say is there is right here, it says Happy-ru, designation of class of people who made their living by hiring themselves out for various services. So a lot of people say that the Hebrews don't appear in any Egyptian literature, but actually Habiru, Hebrew. Habiru. Look into Habiru.
So Eber, and also the name Eber.
Eber. I'll write that down. So it turns out these people, it's not actually a lineage of people. Let's still till today, people act as if Jews, you can be converted to Judaism. And so you're not necessarily, you don't have the genetic lineage of a Jew because you converted. Well, it turns out that seems like it is a tradition going back to the beginning of the Habiru, because it says that it's a class of people. So they're like gypsies or vagabonds, or because they're all thieves or murderers, they're considered to be like a lower class of people, the Habiru.
Yeah, so and that's going to be important. We need to continue to try to learn these names and the meaning of the names, because the meaning of the names completes a lot of these stories.
Yeah.
And it tells us more about their language.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, I have a lot of stuff on here you can look into. If you want to add your own stuff, just put it in the notes here. Mom, I'll send you this. I'll share it with you so you can edit it, make your own pages.
Okay.
And just kind of.
And Jen, I I'm gonna say I like what your mom's been doing. She always brings it back to Jesus Christ at the end of these meetings. So I don't know, maybe she has something to say that before we, end it
Well, I was
about
going to
that.
say that, I was really trying to find the verses about why Moses and Aaron didn't go to the promised land. And it was because Moses had struck the rock and for the water to come out, because the people were constantly complaining and griping, but God told him to speak to the rock. Now, earlier on, he had told him to hit this rock with his staff, but this was a different thing. And because Moses also said, we will bring you water, meaning him and Aaron, instead of God. So they were kind of defaming him in front of the Israelites, saying, we are doing this, not God. And so he didn't get to see the promised land. But the rock has a direct reference to Jesus being the rock.
Okay.
So I think that, we all know that the Old Testament always has foreseeable things and prophets telling about the one that's coming. And so he's always morphed into like a rock or something solid is coming.
Well, and the whole thing about speaking is that Moses, the reason he didn't want to be the spokesperson is because he said that I have uncircumcised lips.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Uncircumcised, what does that mean?
Because Moses brought about the circumcision as part of the law, and then Jesus brought about the circumcision of the heart.
Yeah.
So circumcision's important, but Moses, and so I'm just saying with the speech and everything, Moses was saying I have uncircumcised lips.
Well, he probably had a hair lip, or he was stutterer,
Or he cussed a lot or something.
Huh?
Or maybe he was just always angry, or he cussed a lot, or the way that he used his mouth.
Right.
Unclean.
Yeah. Perverse, maybe.
You'd think if you had a lip that was cut, you would have a circumcised lip.
Remember, his wife was nice to look upon, right? Because he tried to claim her as being his sister so that she wouldn't be sexually assaulted by the Egyptians when they went back or whatever. Wasn't that Moses?
I was thinking that was Jacob in the last thing that we read.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Okay. Well,
also, I thought it was interesting. I read somewhere where it says Moses is the only one that actually saw God face to face. That I didn't know that, because I didn't think
Jacob did too.
Oh, did he?
there were several that said Isaac did as well.
That was from last week.
When he wrestled with the angel, is that part of it?
He wrestled with God.
Well, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Well, in Islam, when I was reading about Islam in the Quran, it says that Moses asked God to see his face, and God revealed it to a mountain far off, and Moses saw the reflection of God's face, but the mountain turned to dust, and Moses was awestruck.
Yeah. I imagine Moses was awestruck for many, 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 many years. You mean I could do this with my staff, and I could do this and that? And
yeah.
I think we have a stronger faith if we saw something like that going on. I also saw something else today on watching Dr. Charles Stanley this morning, and I could relate to this because he said, are you a person that always has to have music going on, or the TV going on, or conversation? And I'm bad about that. Even if I'm not watching the TV, I have the background noise. But he said to truly connect and meditate with God, you're going to have to shut off all noise. so that you can hear him. And, you know, sometimes I'm praying or something, and I've got something in the background going on, and no wonder I get distracted, you know?
Yeah.
So that's another thing. And I need to do that more often with nothing on and just meditating and having that time with God.
I think that's why Jesus wants you to go to a closet, is because as long as you are praying out loud with a whole congregation of people, it goes back to what we just talked about with Moses relating to what the Egyptian side needed, what his Israelite side needed. And it's not necessarily about, not always about what we need, but listening to what God wants for us.
Yes.
Right.
And actually, this is helping me through this period of time that I'm in. And I was actually listening to Joel yesterday in the car, and he was saying, you know, God can open up doors for you, windows or whatever, but he can also close them. And when you get a closed door, don't think of it as a bad thing, because that person in your life may not be where you need to be. Let me let you grow and get closer to me, and I've got you. So don't you worry about whatever your present circumstances are. This is only a moment in time.
Yes.
So it lifted me up.
I also see a recurring theme in these stories where God had to make things really, really bad on people in order to get the situation right so that they could lead. For instance, with like the whole deal with the Egyptians were looking down on the Israelites for like being a second-class citizen, and they were getting too numerous and they had to get rid of them. But if it wasn't for those same people, because of Jacob, Egypt would not have had its glory. I looked into when Imhotep was around, that was the first century. That was the first dynasty. And when you look at where Moses was, that was between the 15th and the 18th dynasty. And so many generations of people had come and gone, and they had completely forgotten about how Joseph had saved Egypt. And by the time Moses came along, they didn't even know that Joseph had any special place in Egypt's history.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. So we're in the generation that we're in right now. We're living in the moment, and you know, God is not subject to time. So we got to just keep learning.
Right.
One of the biggest things that you can get from the story of Moses is that he constantly questioned God and thought he wasn't good enough, and asked God, like, why did you have me do all this talking to the Pharaoh? They're just punishing us now. I didn't deliver your people at all. And it was all the way to the end of his life. And as we discussed before, he never even got to see the fruit of the promised land. But the continuing theme is that God was working in his life throughout the whole thing. He never really knew, even though God told him, he still never really knew how things were going to work out.
Yeah, but don't forget, we saw Moses again during Jesus' transfiguration.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a mystery.
All right. Well, we're going to do more research and discuss the same topic next week.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Love you guys.
Have
Love
you guys
you too.
too.
Bye. Have a good day.
You too.
You too.